Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening. We are at the end of our second cycle through Pirkei Avot, and I have a little bit like bad news or bittersweet news, which is that I think the right thing to do. 2 of the next 4 weeks are fast days in the Jewish calendar. First of all, and then I'm like my brain's just turning to mush, and I need to take a vacation, so I'll be gone two of the last weeks of July. So I think we would start another cycle next week, and I think we will. Next week is a fast day, the 17th of Tammuz, and I think we won't do this next cycle of Pirkei Avot together on Thursdays, though you have a chavruta, and the idea is that you should be able to continue studying with your chavruta. Hopefully, actually, we've taught a person to fish, right? Like you can do the fishing yourself. When after that cycle is finished in the middle of August, I do intend for us to regroup again as a kind of collective. But I also want to shift our focus at that point, which you can opt out of if you wish. But I want for the weeks leading up to the high holidays, I want to be studying instead Maimonides' Hilchot Tshuva, the laws of tshuva, of return and repentance. So that's we're going to take a little break, and then when we come back, we'll be looking at something else, and you can shuffle around as you wish. But that's the plan, both because of the way the calendar is working, and also because I'm just whatever. My brain is just turning to jelly, so I have to like take some time off. Okay, so that makes this our last session, at least for a while, and I would like to end it by bringing us all together in a certain way. And I also, looking at our material today, we're going to be looking at a list. I hope you did look at a list of 48 things. Actually, as we'll soon see, if you counted them, I don't know if you tried counting them, but there's like 49, 50. It's not so clear how many there are, and there are different versions actually in different editions. But what I want to do today, I mean, the other thing that I'm thinking of as we come to the close of this is that we've had a good time, haven't we? We come together on Thursday, and I frame the learning, and I offer you some text, and then we kind of kick it around together, and I love it. I love doing that, but there are some downsides to it as well. Usually in those sorts of settings, the people like me, the loud kind of always has something to say people, jump in a lot, and then others, end up, backing off, not participating. Sometimes their preference and sometimes not their preference. So I tried to fiddle around a little bit earlier in our cycle with breakout groups. And that also has advantages and disadvantages. And I got a lot of feedback that people didn't want breakout groups. We've already been studying in Chavruta. We like to be together in the group. So just sort of thinking about how can we kind of bring everybody into this space as we're gathering together one last time before a little summer break. And so my proposition, my suggestion, my idea for this week is that it has to do with your numbers, where everybody's numbered. You can see, I think, how many do we have all together? We have 28, I think, people, and which will be great. So what I'd like to do is, we'll soon see that we're going to head into a list of 50 different. There's actually, as I counted it, there are 50 different ways of acquiring the Torah. And what I'm going to ask is that we use our numbers for every person to take a list item, read it to us, kind of explain it to us a little bit, like why is this a way that we acquire Torah, and then tell us what you think about that. And then we'll give a chance on each item, just so it isn't one person, for one other person to jump in and respond. Okay, I'll repeat these instructions once we get to them. Let me say a little bit more about the chapter before we head in. But it'll be a little bit of a more meditative, I think, experience than the kind of the ricochet back and forth of the classes that we usually have, which, as I said, I love, but I want this closing to feel a little bit more like a ceremony and a little bit more like a kind of gathering where all of our voices are heard. So that's with your bershutchem, with your permission. That's what we're going to do today. And so, as I said, I'll repeat it, but keep in mind your number, because you'll have to be aware of when you're going and when who's going before you. And of course, you can pass. If you're the kind of person that like, no, I never want to speak, you can pass. But I encourage you today to speak up. And it really shouldn't. It's not a whole thing. Like you read it, you tell us a little bit what you think, and then we'll move to the next thing. And I hope I'll jump in occasionally for interpretation, translations, but mostly I'll try. I'm going to try and stay out of it, and we'll move through. We have about an hour. We have 50 list items, so we in order to be able to see it all together, we actually have to do a little bit of this this ordering, and so that's part of the plan too. Okay. This chapter, I said this last time and I'll say it again, is not part of Mishnah Avot. It's not a part of the original Mishnah. The Mishnah is the rabbinic code of law that's compiled in the year 220 of the Common Era. And we are focusing on one tractate of the Mishnah, Tractate Avot, because, it's the most interesting tractate in many ways. Both in its content and in that its content is so distinct from the other chapters because it's non-legal. It's the only non-legal, although there are legal matters discussed, this seems to be extra legal. And the easiest way to think about it is ethical. These are ethics that we've been discussing. There are 5 chapters in Mishnah Avot, and then in part to form the cycle that we've been running on. Remember, it's a cycle that first takes place between Passover and Shavuot, and some people run it through all the way to Rosh Hashanah. But in order to have the cycle, you need a 6th chapter because there are 7 weeks between Passover and Shavuot, so 6 Shabbatot, and this is traditionally studied on Shabbat. So they added a chapter to it, and a chapter that is actually taken from another rabbinic work, and it looks different and feels different than the rest of the Avot, and it's very clear what the topic is. It's all about Torah, and it's actually called Pirkei Torah, the chapter of acquiring the Torah. How do you acquire the Torah? The title begs the question, suggests the question. But as I said when I posted about this earlier this week, actually it's not much about how you acquire the Torah. It's mostly about how awesome the Torah is in all kinds of ways and how you should love it and just various things about the Torah, which are also great. Last time that we were in this chapter, we studied the story of Rabbi Yossi ben Kisma, who went to a town where they asked him to stay and be the Torah scholar, and he said, absolutely not. I only live in a place where there's Torah. So lots of little reflections on what it means to be with Torah, to love Torah, to study Torah. But the Mishnah that we're going to look at today is the only one I think that speaks directly to the title of the chapter and to the theme of the chapter. And we've been in each of these chapters looking at the theme, the primary theme that we could identify in the chapter. We don't have to even work to identify it in this chapter. It's acquiring the Torah. So how do you do that? What does it even mean to acquire the Torah? What? I guess to learn it, but maybe it means something more. The phrase acquire or the word acquire, we've seen before famously in Pirkei Avot when Hillel teaches, Aseh lecha rav, make for yourself a teacher, ukneh lecha chaver, and acquire for yourself a friend. So there's something there, like something about acquisition that's different than making a teacher. You acquire a friend, and of course it suggests some kind of exchange. There's an economic language to it. Like I acquire a good, and I have to give something in order to acquire it. So that's one way to think about this list that we're about to look at. What do you have to give? What do you have to pay to get Torah? Right? I want to say one more thing before we begin our rotation, and we'll see how it works. You know, I like being an experimental educator, but that means that sometimes you fail. So we'll see how it works. I want to say one more thing, which is that if you read the Mishnah, notice that it isn't just that we have this list of 48 things that you need in order to acquire the Torah, but it says specifically that Gedolat Torah yoter min kahuna umin malchut. Greater is Torah than the priesthood and than kingship. Shehamalchut niknet b'shloshim malot v'akuna b'esrim v'arba. Because kingship is acquired by 30 ma'alot, stages, levels, and priesthood by 24. V'hatorah niknet ba'arbayim v'shmona dvarim. But the Torah is acquired with 48 things, and that makes it greater somehow, or there's more that you have to do to get it. And then we're going to go on and tell you what the 48 things are. So just before we do that, it is worth noting, I mean, you may be asking, why am I comparing the Torah to priesthood and kingship? There's like random things. We could spend some time linking them together, but it is worth noting that if we've been reading Pirkei Avot, we've already seen this triad before, right? Rabbi Shimon in chapter 4 taught that there are 3 crowns. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Shlosha Ktarim hem, Keter Torah, the Keter Kehuna, the Keter Malchut. The crown of Torah, the crown of priesthood, and the crown of royalty, kingship. So there you have that triad of the 3 things. So that's part of, as we move through this, is part of what we're doing is we're comparing it to those other kinds of crowns that you might wear. One of the things that we're trying to get by acquiring Torah is the crown of Torah. Interestingly, by the way, that Mishnah it gives us that triad, but then ends by saying, V'cheter Shem Tov ole al gabehen, that actually the crown of a good name, can sort of wonder what that meant, but reputation, just integrity, or something more mystical, that's actually greater than all of them. So there's a class after this that we have to have on, like, how do you acquire a good name? But anyway, that's as much background as I think I want to give. I want to now move into this list, and as I said, what we're going to do is go by number. Everybody has been assigned a number. I have number 1. Right, so I'll model it, and then who's got number 2? I see Emil's got 3. You know who you are out there. I can't see everyone right now. But what I'll do is I'm going to read the first one, Talmud, study. Right, read it in English. You can read it in Hebrew as well if you want to practice, or if you're just good at Hebrew. And then just tell me, and remember, you have about a minute, maybe less, to say, well, I think Torah is acquired with this thing. I think this is why you need this thing to acquire Torah, or this is why they might be saying that. Try to explain it first as if you have to, as if like they're presenting you this, so you have to understand why are they saying that. But then, so explain it, but then tell us what you think. Maybe one of these things, and I predict I found some of them to be things I don't want to do, that I'm not really comfortable with, and I'm not sure that they're compatible with Torah. I'm not sure that they're necessary for Torah. So you can problematize, or you can say, no, I think this is great. I think you do need this in order to acquire Torah. Okay? That's all you're responsible for. Read it, tell us why you think they're saying it, and tell us what you think. And then we'll pause and just give a chance for anyone else on the call to respond and say, I have another thought on that, or I like what you said, or I have a different position, right? So we have a little bit of the dialogue and an opportunity for, it's not just a rote recitation or movement through a list, but mostly we're gonna hear from everybody by moving through this list, okay? So does that clear? Everybody feel like they understand our method for today? All right, great. All right, so let's begin. And who is number 2? I didn't see you out there.
Hi, it's me, Deborah.
Okay, so Deborah, you'll pick up as soon as I'm done. Great, let's begin. I'll try to not to interrupt, but when there are either grammatic or whatever, if there are reasons that I feel like I can help guide it, I will. Okay, so let's begin. The first thing that you need to acquire Torah it's so straightforward. It's Talmud, it's studying, right? Which I guess means you can't get there but by studying Torah. That's the basic. There's a reason it's first on the list. There's no way around it. You actually have to do the work of studying, and I like that. It feels to me like, yeah, you can say a lot of lofty things about what Torah is, but at a certain point you just have to get your butt in a seat and open a book and read, and that makes sense to me. Okay. Anyone want to respond to that? Anybody got a thought that they want to share? My one interlocutor.
Hi, this is Rhoda. I'll just
Hi,
say the obvious. The reason that I like that, or the reason why I think that it's there, is because it takes our own initiative. So we have to sort of use our own agency to really learn and to make something happen. And I think that's, in a way, sort of the message of Torah, that it's supposed to be something to live by.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thanks. Wonderful. Okay, great. Deborah, number 2.
Bishmiyat ha'ozen, attentive listening. And I think that goes to the idea of a study partner, and a study partner with whom you actually listen to, that you don't have that you haven't made a decision about what you think, but rather you listen. You listen with full appreciation.
Nice.
Nice. Wonderful. Anyone want to respond to that?
Yeah, I do.
Thanks.
Okay. So someone said to me a couple of years ago, the most important thing you can give somebody, the most important gift you can give them, is to listen to them. And it was such a moment of learning for me, because you're always so busy thinking about what are you going to say. And it's like you learn more, I've learned in my old age, when you listen.
Jerry just had a birthday, so happy birthday to his old age. Okay, great. Number 3, Emil.
Number 3, arichas v'sayim, deliberate speech, which makes sense. I mean, that Mishnah a few weeks ago about silence, or like measuring your words very carefully. Obviously, if someone is looking for meaning, like you have to be careful in what you tell them. But it's more of a question, but arichas means lengthening usually, doesn't it? Or drawing out?
I think in this case, it's like, it's almost like laying out. Like an editor is like an orech. So it's like the person who lays things out. So laying out your speech care, and literally it's laying out your lips.
Oh, interesting. I just thought like it seems like maybe it's that mix of economy, but also like evocative language, like where it can be, you can deduce from it, you can interpret it, but it's all there in those carefully chosen words. So that makes sense to me.
Okay. Anyone want to respond to that? Okay, we can move on. Number 4, who's number 4?
An understanding heart. So to me, that reads as compassion. And I think it ties into what Deborah and Emil said about their list things above. Attentive listening with your study partner, having compassion maybe for their interpretation. And with what Emil said about deliberate speech, not judging, I think that ties in nicely with being compassionate and understanding.
Okay. Anyone want to respond to that?
I'll just add something. It's Rhoda. The idea of the understanding heart, it's. I like what you had said, but there's also something to be said about that it takes time. So like studying takes time, listening takes time, speaking deliberately takes time. Maybe it takes time for us to sort of stop and listen to be able to understand.
Okay. All right, number 5.
An intelligent heart. I think this means that we have to be able to discern and I don't want to say analyze, but critically think about what's written in the Torah and how we can apply it to our lives and how it affects our lives and other people in our lives.
Great. Any response to that?
The fact that it says an intelligent heart and not an intelligent mind bringing into question, what does it mean by an intelligent heart? And what are you feeling intelligently? I think that takes a lot of interpretation.
Yeah, here's a point where I'll jump in and remind, I think some people know this, that in biblical Hebrew, the word lev means both heart and mind. It's like really consciousness, the seat of the consciousness. But it is true that by rabbinic Hebrew, they're using terms like sechel and moach. So there is, I think Gary's right to say, well, this is an intelligent, but it's located in the emotional seat of the self. Great. All right, now things get a little more complicated. Who's number 6?
Reluctantly, it's me.
Okay.
Okay, I hate this, and it seems it's.
Well, you're not following the instructions. You have
sorry.
to repeat it.
Okay. Is that not part of it?
Step 3.
Okay, well, you got to feel what you're feeling sometimes. Okay, I don't even know how to engage with this because my general experience of how things are acquired, especially in Torah via fear, is to interpret it as being awe. And that seems like not an option because number 7 is awe. So it seems like I can't read that into it in the way that I normally would to excuse myself from actually having to deal with the value of fearing Torah. So I don't know that I have a good answer because it makes me uncomfortable and I don't really know. I don't like the idea of that being a way to acquire Torah.
Okay, fair enough. Can someone, and I'll just say by way of words, Hannah's right. We can and sometimes do, and I think rightly translate the next line item, yira, as awe, but ema is actually more often translated as terror. So can anyone help Hannah out? Like, why would that be a trait that we would, or does everyone agree that this is not?
I have something to add.
Please, yeah.
So this might be interpreted as maybe the fear of God, like if we look at different stories in the Torah, like maybe about King David, about how he sinned and then he was punished by God, and maybe by us reading the Torah and seeing that, it'll, help us to behave in a better way towards other people. And yeah.
Okay, lovely, thank you.
I also have something to add. Okay,
we're just gonna go one respondent at a time. I'm gonna try to stick to the rules. But please be, and I will also say, if you've already responded a few times, think about it. The next line item, awe.
Yira, I think I could see where this would help. I think if you're thinking in terms of awe of God, awe of creation, I think it's a powerful motivating force. If you have awe of God, that you would want to learn Torah, that it would inspire you to kind of learn, okay, if you really are in awe of God, what does God want? What does God command us to do? Why should we do it? What's the why behind it? So I could see that. And also I could see differentiating on a side note between that and fear in the context of this, as fear being more, not just fear of punishment, but maybe fear of what, not, at least in the terms of the context of when this was written, of not, getting a seat in the world to come, or, of not, of being judged, I guess, of divine judgment or divine retribution, kind of in line with the divine punishment, but maybe broader scope.
Great. Who was it that was going to come in as the second person on the last one? I want to give you first rights here.
Great. I had something specifically about the last one, but it's fine. I can incorporate it into mine later.
Okay. All right. Anyone want to respond to what Joe said about awe? Okay. Number 8.
That's me. Banava, humility.
Mm-hmm.
I took some notes here. I think that part of being humble is listening, meaning not assuming that better than someone, which I think is helpful both when studying with the Chavrusa and also with God, like walking humbly before God. And this notion that if you think you know the truth, you clearly don't. Meaning that there's never a level of certainty with Torah in particular that you should have. There should always be more to learn, and God being the ultimate knower.
Beautiful, beautiful. Anyone want to respond to that? Humility as a trait. It's one we studied in depth.
Moses was supposed to be the most humble person in Torah. So their humility must be something vitally important to be a good leader. And often we don't think of a good leader as someone who is particularly humble. So it's an interesting contrast.
Nice connection. Great, okay, number 9. I'm gonna start highlighting the Hebrew so you see it because the English is numbered.
And joy, that's me. It's very interesting because what I was studying this week, I looked a little bit at commentary from Rashi, and there was something that really came up that touched me when he talked about happiness. And he said, because the divine does not dwell in pain. And it really struck me. That's somewhere in the background that I wanted to ask about. But I think with joy, it seems to me that I really believe that we're here to be joyful on earth. I really do, to find joy. And I think that is a wonderful way to approach everything when we're talking about Torah. When we approach everything, whatever mitzvah, whatever study, whatever, any one of these things, when we come from it, when we come to that with joy, it brings, I think it brings light. It's all these come naturally, all these things, in that intelligent heart. Sitting, when you come in joy, it's as if you're living fully.
Wonderful, wonderful. And thank you for that, Rashi. I'll just repeat it. Wendy is absolutely right. Rashi says, with joy, the divine presence doesn't dwell in sadness, but in joy. Beautiful. Anyone want to respond to that?
Hi, I was thinking of, it's Tali, I was thinking about just what Rabbi Nachman, mitzvah gedola lihiyot b'simcha. And so that we have to, that is the greatest mitzvah. So that all the mitzvot that you do, if you come from that mindset of approaching it with from that place of joy, it's so much more that it will fill you up by approaching it from that place. And I think for someone like his life that was so hard, that he could always say that the greatest mitzvah is joy. So I think I'm piggybacking on Wendy's comment too.
Very nice, very nice.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I just want to mention one other thing. I thought it was ironic. My Hebrew name is Simcha Tova, good happiness. And it just kind of goes with this. You know, I was given that at birth. The rabbi gave it to me. Well, God only knows why.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, this one isn't on all of the lists, right? I call this the 48 or 49 or 50 because I actually, by the end, we end up getting 50 things. And one of the explanations is that this one is not on everybody's list, right? So much, yeah, okay. So who's 10?
I'm 10.
Great.
So this one sits a little bit weird with me because I feel like it contradicts several of the ones above. But the tahara, in purity. And I guess I could read this as like that, like ultimately you kind of do want to be doing other things like for the right reason. Like I know that Judaism doesn't always have a focus on intentions, but like maybe it's a nod to like at some point, to some extent, your intentions can matter. At the very least, because if your intentions are bad, then who knows how long your actions will remain good. But I do feel like it contradicts specifically fear above, because like that almost feels like an impurity. So I guess if I was, I mean, I'm in agreement that fear is not one of the things I would put on this list, and probably neither is purity, but like, I kind of like that they're on the list contradicting each other, because it kind of feels like the fact that they're both on the list means that we can't take this literally, that like, these are things to aspire to, but obviously you can't be extremely fearful and extremely pure in your studies.
Nice. Awesome. Mayim, I see you.
Oh, I'm so excited about this. I would respectfully disagree. I think that purity is one of the most sacred ways to show fear and awe. I mean, I think there's a reference to the purity with which we have to care for, like the Holy of Holies, and the sense of purity surrounding the Kohanim and what that means, and the notion of Yom Kippur as kind of a symbol of kind of our ultimate goal, but also in terms of personal purity, being pure of heart and being, I mean, for me at least, that purity I think comes with a notion of an enormous divine presence that hovers over and threatens at all times.
I find it very interesting that you have linked fear and purity.
Oh, wait, only one respondent per trait. We're just gonna, otherwise we'll never get through it. Okay, the next one is Shimush Chachamim, which, speaking of literal, this probably literally means being an attendant, like being an apprentice, like sitting, serving them drinks, but obviously could mean lots of things. Number 11, who's number 11?
That's me, but it's Novo, something like that. Attending the sages. Attending to the sages, this is the first people who are mentioned, and I take it to mean that we should listen to the rabbis and to wise people. So it's not only the text, it's not only these inner qualities, but it's our relationship with certain people. And it's not the same as listening exactly, I guess. Attend in French and English also means to care for someone.
Nice. And Matt, we just spoke on the phone this week, right?
That's me, yeah.
Yeah, so Matt's new to our community. Welcome, Matt. And had some very very insightful things to say about number 11. Anyone want to respond to it? Okay.
I would just say, when I think of attending to the sages, it also involves humility. There's a sense of giving them the kavod. So there's really and humility. And I just remembered a time when Rav Avraham Branwan of blessed memory was in my home, and all the little I noticed that to learn how to make less of yourself, which when I was taught, and I really saw it playing it out when having a sage in my home, and how my behavior changed because of who he was, and of just trying to present myself with having that grace to be able to do that, so that I felt very honored. But that was, I think, that what you achieve when you're attending to a sage.
Okay, nice. Okay, the next one is Dikduk Chaverim, which I have translated and others have translated give and take with friends. It might also mean being like precise about which friends you take, but the reason it's translated this way is because it parallels the next one, argumentation with disciples. So it's up to you, but I have translated it give and take with friends. Who is number 12?
That's me, Elizabeth. And I'm as opposed to Hannah, I'm really happy I got this one, because I think this is kind of the central piece of what we're doing right here. And it thrills me that we do have friends. I mean, unfortunately, it's all been virtual, but people with whom we can listen to, discuss, argue, give and take, and listen to them. And I think it includes, other than fear, which I think is kind of an outlier, it includes a lot of what we've already seen. You have to be humble to listen to a friend. You have to have joy in your heart, and you have to be open. And all of that, if we remember that what we're talking about is how do we get Torah? How do we incorporate Torah into our lives? A lot of it is going to be by the friendships and the love that we have for others. So, I think that this one is really beautiful.
Nice.
Beautiful vehicle to get that.
And beautifully spoken. Anyone have a response? Okay. The next one is Pilpul HaTalmidim. And this is what I said, it's Dikduk Chaverim and Pilpul Talmidim, so there's an inclination to translate it the same. Pilpul, some of you will know, it's one of these words that has made it into sort of like some parts of the English language for some who are in the know. But Pilpul is often spoken of as like the discourse of the Talmud. It's the back and forth. You might have said give and take, but it's like a very precise and analytical back and forth. So we're translating it here as argumentation with disciples, students. Who is number 13?
I think it's no one because it was Nick. And
we lost a couple of folks. Yeah, we lost a couple of folks. We lost, and also looking ahead, I think 16 and 18. So I don't know if we want to have earlier people go volunteer to go again.
What we'll do, whenever it's okay, because the truth is, we probably won't even make it at the timing that I'm seeing. We won't make it through the list, so that's fine. Does anyone want to comment on Pilpul Tamidim, on argumentation with disciples? You are welcome to jump in. Okay. The next one's a fun one. Who's number 14?
That would be me, Riet.
Okay, Riet.
So it's B'Yishuv, sitting.
Yes.
So the first thing that comes to mind for me personally is to cease activity and busyness, to be able to acquire Torah. But there's also a next level for me, and that is seizing the movement in my mind and all the thoughts and craziness. And sometimes you can't really hear or learn or pay attention if there's so much thinking going on. It attaches the concept, links to that attentive listening component. And the gentleman was saying you can't really hear somebody if you're concentrating on what you're going to say. And I think this is also for me part of sitting, is to be able to get quiet and a sense of being settled, to be able to hear.
Nice, nice. I'm going to play the respondent on this one because it reminds me of two things immediately. One is that a place of studying Torah is called a yeshiva, right? Which is like a kind of a play on a place where you sit. It's also like a dwelling, but it's a place where you sit. And they used to say in yeshiva that one of the things that you need in order to learn well is you need a good head, but you also need Sitzfleisch. You need literally like sitting flesh. Like you need a butt you can sit on. Like that's one of the things that you need in order to acquire Torah. So there you go. That's like taking it very literally. Beautiful, Riet. Thank you. Who's number 15? Do we not have a 15, Andrea?
We do. It's Robin.
Robin. So Robin, Mikra is a reference to the Hebrew Bible, like itself, which seems a strange one on this list, like the Torah plus all of the other. So any thoughts on this, Robin?
You know what? They have their hand raised. Let's see. Hang on. Let me try to unmute you.
Oh, there you are.
Okay.
Yeah.
It seems really obvious that in order to acquire Torah, you would have to read Torah and read the rest of the holy writings. And the obviousness of it actually brings to mind what I've been thinking about while we've been going through the rest of the list, and from reading the rest of the list, is that I think that they're trying to say that reading and knowledge of the scripture is very, very central and important, but all these other pieces have to do with actually incorporating the knowledge and the wisdom that you get from that into your entire life, and that all these other things that they've mentioned that we've been talking about are not just in relation to studying scripture, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
That the joy and the purity and all of these things are actually what you're to acquire Torah means to acquire knowledge about how to live not just to understand the scripture. So my reaction is I'm really enjoying learning more scripture as I get older, which I didn't before. I only was interested in the living part and how you live the ethics, and I find it really important and exciting to learn the scripture. But so many of the other pieces I think have to do with acquiring Torah by internalizing the wisdom and living it in the streets and living it daily.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Robin. Anyone have a response to that?
I think that, I mean, another thing that I really read in that is the, like, kind of maybe referencing times when Torah itself, but not necessarily other Jewish texts, were banned. Like, kind of acknowledging, like, by the way, if they ever ban the 5 books of Moses again, which happened, I think, under Roman rule, maybe under Greek rule, that, like, you can still learn it, just use the other parts.
Oh, nice, nice. That's great. All right, speaking of other parts, next one is a little self-referential. That's what we're doing right now. Although actually we're not, right? Because I said this isn't in the Mishnah. But Pirkei Avot Azed is part of the Mishnah. So who's number 16, Mishnah?
Oh, that's another one that ended up having to leave early. Does somebody else want to volunteer?
Anyone want to speak to that? All right, we can leave it as it is. It's a little bit of a funny one. Like, in order to study Torah, you have to do what you're doing right now. You're doing it. So we're all doing it. All right, now we're gonna head into a section that is, you'll see it's very, the next 5 are all similar. And let's say it's not the fun section of our list. All right, who's got number 17?
That's me. By minimizing business. You know, in the age of COVID, when so many of us are unemployed right now, would be a perfect time to be studying a lot of Torah because we've minimized so much business. But I think that this one definitely speaks to me, but maybe in a different way because, you know, I kind of, when I first started going to Ikar, I tried to really, create a boundary on Shabbat between this was my spiritual space, not like a workspace, you know? So I tried really hard to minimize business and not talk about what I did for work because it just detracted from what I needed from that space. So this one definitely speaks to me of just, you know, leaving those sort of transactional dynamics outside of a space of studying Torah, so you can receive it genuinely. So you're not trying to extract something, but you're trying to be in relationship with it.
Great, great. Anyone want to respond to that? Minimizing business. Okay.
Wait, if no one's going to respond, can I respond real quick?
Yeah, sure can.
Elsewhere in Pirkei Avos, earlier, there's also several rabbinic comments about what happens when you engage in the outside world. The notion of a kind of seductiveness to that kind of secular world. So just wanted to mention that.
Okay, wonderful. Speaking of which, that takes us very nicely into this next one, b'miut derech eretz. Many ways to translate that. It's literally the way of the world. Sometimes it's a euphemism for sex, actually, but it's a euphemism for lots of things. So we've translated it as by minimizing worldly matters. So who's 18? Oh, we don't have an 18, right?
Oh, I just moved Gary to 18. Sorry to throw you in there.
Oh, Gary? But Gary's 29.
I moved him.
Okay.
Okay, I'll take 18.
Take it.
Okay. I think this whole minimizing series all belongs together as I'm looking at it, because to me what it's saying is, you know, we keep bringing all these outside issues into our Torah study rather than let Torah be central and let Torah guide us as opposed to all the things from the outside that are there. So it's almost in a sense like giving Torah the power while you're studying it and letting it lead.
Nice. Nicely said. And speaking to the whole category there. Anybody want to respond to this minimizing worldly matters?
The thing that came to mind immediately when you said derech eretz I don't know if anyone else is familiar with this, but the Judy Kaplan Ginsburg song, Derech Eretz, that means manners we should know. So I knew that as translated as like manners, like societal expectations, which I don't know if that's what they're using here, but that seems very weird.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Wonderful. Okay, here's a fun one. Minimizing tanug, b'miyut pleasure. Who's got 19?
I do. Are there any subtleties to the translation here that I should know about before going into this, or is it just?
It's pretty straightforward. Minimizing, pleasure is the best translation. Enjoyment. On Shabbat, when we have a little like gathering after Shabbat, we call it an oneg, like a time to delight. You got a hard one, Gabe.
So yeah, I mean, Judaism isn't really a religion about. It's not like an asceticism type of. I feel like if you want self-denial, like there are better religions than Judaism. I'm thinking Catholicism, but anyway, there aren't a lot. I mean, there are parts of there. There's like mandated pleasures in the Torah, if I'm not mistaken. So, kind of like what I think someone was saying before. I mean, it's almost boxed in by the preceding item. Like I would say, okay, maybe they mean worldly pleasures, but that kind of feels like it's gotten taken by item number 18. So I guess the only way that I can make sense of this right now is the idea, almost kind of more of a kind of a meditative approach to it, not the like perpetual minimization of pleasure, but just the minimization of certain kinds of pleasures for the purposes of kind of communing with the Torah. So in the way that when you try and mindfulness meditation, and you're trying not to, you acknowledge things but you don't get attached to them, maybe that so it goes for pleasures in the specific context of trying to acquire the Torah.
Okay. Any response to that? I expect there's some response if I tell you that the way to get to Torah is to minimize pleasure in your life.
What's the difference between joy and pleasure?
Great question. Just as a matter of translation, pleasure is really, as you would expect it, very kind of sensory and physical.
Can I say something about it?
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said for it being distracting, and that there's inherent in that kind of understanding of pleasure is that it kind of overtakes you in a lot of ways. And if that's where you are, then you don't really have any emotional or mental space to be acquiring or learning Torah. And so maybe there's another kind of pleasure or joy or some other feeling that you can acquire through that experience of Torah, but that you have to set aside these other distractions in order to be present. And pleasure seems like one of the most distracting things.
Great. Okay, here's one of my great pleasures. B'miyut shena. Who's got 20? Anybody got 20?
Oh, you know what? That's someone on their phone. Maybe they can't unmute themselves. Let me try though. Whoever you are, Samsung, if you can unmute yourself, go ahead.
Hey, Samsung. We'll call you Sam for sure.
Not.
Okay, anybody got a response to this? Minimizing sleep? I see Wendy out there.
This is very interesting. One of the things that came to mind is oftentimes cults will have people who are joining not sleep very much, so they're kind of, they don't have their senses. But then on the other hand, I also think about Modani, when we wake up in the morning and we say, thank you, God, for bringing me back from sleep. Sleep is a time where one goes into other parts of the brain, the subconscious. And also, I believe also that we touch the other worlds oftentimes in our dreams, in our sleep. And so much of Torah is about being present and being here. You know, the mitzvot, doing all these things, there's a necessity of being in the here and now and living life now. And if you're sleeping, that's not possible. You're dealing in other worlds. You're dealing in a place of sleep, first of slumber, but also the mind is occupied with other aspects of the world and the spiritual level.
Okay. Okay, nice.
Also, I know I can't say I got this interpretation from like a credible source, but I know I have heard some interpretations of like saying that when you're sleeping, you're kind of entering like the higher ones of the four worlds from Kabbalah. You're leaving like the kind of earthly world and going into kind of like the higher worlds approaching the one. But so maybe this is saying like by an extension of you can't acquire the Torah while sleeping, it's like you don't actually have to leave the earthly world to acquire the Torah. Like it's here as well. You don't have to try and do any like Kabbalistic world jumping or anything.
Interesting. Oh, I actually, look, I missed one. So there are 51 on here. There's 51 ways to learn your Torah. B'miut sicha, by minimizing, I think, just conversation or chatter. I'll leave that one off because we spent a whole session learning about silence, but that's all on the list too. Let's go to my least favorite item on the list, just to editorialize a bit. Who's got number 21?
I do, Shoshana. Yeah, I actually find it really personally confrontational because I do like to laugh a lot. But I can also see that if I go by the definition that Robin gave about acquiring Torah and entering into kind of higher states of consciousness, that minimizing laughter may be a good thing because quite often laughter is a defense mechanism and can actually have the effect of minimizing the seriousness of what's really going on. And so, yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Nice, thank you. Anyone want to respond to that?
Yeah, we actually covered this in Rabbi Tzadok's Musar class earlier today.
Oh my gosh.
One of the things is you could be laughing at somebody derisively, and that's one reason. And another reason is that it's kind of an escape from reality for people. Like they don't want to take something seriously or don't want to confront something seriously that they might find uncomfortable. So they try using laughter or humor or levity as it's put as an escape mechanism.
Nice, great, Joe. Thank you.
Do you mean using comedy as a coping mechanism? Because I have no idea what that's like.
22. Who's got 22?
I do. B'miut sachok.
Oh, that's the next. We're on the next one. About erech hapayim.
Yeah. By long suffering. I'm not sure what they mean by long suffering, but I think kind of building on the idea that Joseph just touched on, the idea that if we don't avoid suffering, but we use the opportunities that are there for us when we are suffering, I think there's a lot of room for like post-traumatic growth as an idea. And I think in my own experience, and particularly in my work as a hospice veterinarian, I find that there are a lot of things to be learned when you're in the space of dealing with different types of suffering. So maybe that's what they're speaking to.
Nice. Wow. I appreciate that reflection. Anyone want to respond to that?
I have a thought.
Please.
So it could be that without suffering makes us appreciate the good things in life more, and without suffering, people might take the good things in life for granted.
Great. Okay, number 23.
Lev Tov. a good heart. This is very strange because we've had an understanding heart, we've had an intelligent heart, and now we have a good heart. And I'm not exactly sure. I understand what a understanding and an intelligent heart is, but a good heart seems to be all emotion rather than intellect. And I'm not exactly sure what kind of emotion a good heart is.
You know, I feel the need to respond, David, because you're right. The language here feels like, first of all, very basic, and secondly, we were already talking about the heart. I will say some of the translations are just translate this as generosity, like a good giving heart. I translated it more literally, but yeah, I think that
Right.
there's a little dilemma in there. Anyone want to respond to that? Good heart?
It's just a general thing, but I wonder whether some of these are positives. I don't know if that exists in the Hebrew grammar of the era, but like they're all separated with commas. I could imagine if this was literally as it is in English, that like, especially some of the ones that are adjacent to each other aren't necessarily listed items as much as they are listing synonyms for the same aspect.
Interesting, interesting. Okay, let's see. 24, who's 24?
May I just, one little thing about good heart?
No, we're just going to do one respondent to each item. And we're actually, the truth is we're at 7 o'clock right now. We are not going to finish our list, but we will finish our list of people in this circle. I think that is 29 and we are on 24. So who's got 24? Emunat Chachamim.
Tali, can I unmute you? You want to go? You're 24. Hang on, you have to click accept.
Okay. Emunat Chachamim. I really like this one, faith in the sages, because it's almost like they're standing on our shoulders. I feel like having faith is standing on our shoulders. That's how I look at that. And really, what they bring for Torah to me is God speaking to us. God speaks to us through the Torah, and also that the sages are really, you have to have faith in what they're saying, because it's making yourself smaller and really taking on and integrating the wisdom that that they're offering you. And I also look at I have the image of, when I look at the tree of life and I think of the sages, which oftentimes we don't see that wisdom, but that's the roots. So when I think of the roots of Torah, I think of it's the words of the sages.
Yeah, fair. Lovely. Anyone want to respond to that? Faith in the sages? Okay.
Well, I do. I want to say something. I kind of just want to offer like a sort of an opposite, I guess, sort of sentiment, in that like whenever I see something like this that tells us to have faith in earthly powers or have faith in people, it really gives me pause, because it just makes me think about what kind of power are we giving up, or what kind of power are we assigning to human beings, and is that something that we can build, a society on, a value system on, is like detracting from the power that we ascribe to God, or that is ascribed to God. So it always makes me just feel a little sense of suspicion.
Okay, thank you. Great. 25.
That's me.
Kabbalat Yisurim, yeah. Well, here's a hard one.
What is the second part? Learning of Torah is also acquired by one?
Oops, sorry, I just screwed this up. That is just an insert here to make sense of a grammatical shift. After this, we have Uba Kabbalat Yisurim, and then it says, it's just a subject, Hamakir et Mikomod. So the next one will be the one who recognizes their place. So they just had to insert that in order to get that. Does that make sense?
Oh, sort of.
Well, I'll explain more as we move to the next item.
I think I understand this. Or the way I'm thinking of it right now is that there's the good with the bad. And I feel like Rabbi Brous always talks about holding two things at once, and how I'm not a person who likes to do that. I think in black and white, and it's hard for me to hold two things at once, but somehow, like, it's somebody said before about appreciating the good when you have the bad, like you have to accept the bad, the suffering, the challenge. It's almost like if you cut off all your feelings, then you're not going to feel the good either. So you've got to accept the suffering and challenge also.
Wow. Anyone want to respond to that?
I will.
Please.
I think to the extent that you don't accept your suffering, you may spend time, i.e., in this context, waste time kind of fighting against the reality of your suffering instead of accepting it and getting on with studying Torah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So I'll just explain again. There's a shift here just in the grammar where the list starts. It's like the one who recognizes God, the one who is happy in their portion, the one who. So in order to make sense of that shift in grammar, there's an insertion. Learning of Torah is also acquired by one who. So that's how we get to. 26. Who's 26?
Me, Rhoda.
Rhoda.
Okay, so 26. I'm going to read it in Hebrew, but I just lost it.
It's
Where is
right
it?
here. I'll highlight it.
Great. Hamakir et Makomo, who recognizes their place. I love this one. I'm choosing to look at it very optimistically. And to me, I'm thinking about understanding our unique strengths and gifts and the talents that we have and how we can utilize those for good. And in the different roles that we have in our communities, our friendship circles, our families, our world, like who are we and how do we bring our best, to make whatever we're part of better.
Love it. Love that. Anyone want to respond to it?
I think that's I'll respond. I like that you preface it with like, I'm going to choose to see this positively because my reaction is like to this. One who recognizes their place is one of deep discomfort because I could see this being used as a means to keep people from realizing full potential or to keep people from being able to seek liberation. And in many ways, I don't like this one at all. But when looked at more like metaphorically, I do appreciate it. But just on a basis level, I'm just like not about this one.
Okay. Great. And one of the great things, by the way, for all of our discomfort out there is that there's supposed to be 48 ways. So like anyone you don't like, you have 3 to spare, Okay, so the next one is number 27, Hasameach b'chelko, which we saw in an earlier Mishnah, right? Who is rich? Hasameach b'chelko. So who's got 27?
I do. Yeah, I think it's clear in how it's stated. I think it's exactly how you read it. To be happy, to trust that God is giving us exactly what we need and what's best for us, and to rejoice in that it's absolutely perfect.
Nice. Anyone want to respond to that? Okay, number 28. Ha'oseh sayag lidvarav. This also is a callback because in the very first Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, we heard about making fences. So who's got 28?
I do. I think it's a matter of being conscious. There's nothing more powerful in the world than words. And so it's vital that we're conscious of the impact of our words. And making a fence about them I interpret it as, being sensitive to how what we say is being heard, to perhaps coming up with ways of avoiding temptation to maybe engage in speech that is not good or not right or not loving. And because the study of Torah involves so much talking about it with others and passing it on, and we do that through our words. So this is vital.
So well said. Anyone want to respond to that? Number 28?
Yes. I would just say that it's important, especially in the context of Torah study, because words are so important and matter so literally in Torah. Like the actual literal words of Torah are so specific, and the Torah is very tersely worded. No word is wasted in Torah, so it's really kind of helpful to be able to do that if you already have that sensibility.
Wonderful. Okay, I think we're at our last number. Who is number 29? Eino machzik tova latzmo. Who is that?
I was originally, but I was given 18.
Is there a 29? Oh, it's probably Andrea.
Oh, we
Andrea.
have, no, we have Ken Raven.
Oh, Ken.
I'm gonna unmute you, Ken.
Number 29.
Are you there? Maybe he's not there.
No, hold on for a minute. Hold on.
Ken, is that you?
Maybe he's not there.
Okay.
That was Ken. He said to hold on for a minute.
It was.
Yes. Oh,
Ken, are you there? Ken, can you round us out? Going once?
I am here. I just got
Ken.
a phone call. I had to step away. I'm on the phone right now.
Okay. All right.
I'm here, so I can't get involved for the moment, but I am here. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, good to have you.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Very nice.
Anyone got something to say about number 29, who takes no credit for themselves? Since we're on it, and then we'll finish. Okay.
Well, I was just going to say something, Stroda. Yeah. I'm going to do an interpretation again. I'm not loving who takes no credit for themselves, but what I do like about it is the idea of empowering others and making sure that others have a voice and that you're giving them power to be able to, sort of use Torah for the best that they can be, kind of a thing. Okay.
Okay, wonderful. So, folks, there's so much more here, and there's good stuff. I mean, the very next one is Ahuv, who is loved, who loves God, who loves their fellow creatures, who loves righteous ways, who loves correction, who loves rebuke, who keeps themselves far from honor, who does not let their heart become swelled on account of their learning, who does not delight in giving legal decisions, who carries a burden with their friend, who judges with the scales weighted in their favor, who brings them to truth, who brings them to peace, who settles their heart when they study, who asks and answers, who listens and adds, who learns in order to teach, who learns in order to practice, who makes their teacher wiser, who is exact in what they have learned. And this is the final one, and it's distinct because there's a proof text, and who says a thing in the name of the one who says it. Thus you have learned, anyone who says a thing in the name of the one who says it brings deliverance into the world. As it is said, and Esther told the king in Mordechai's name, V'tomer Esther l'melech b'shem Mordechai. So I guess that's all the time we have, but I want to just end with one last question. What else would you put on this list? What's missing? What do you what would you like to see here? What else do you think you need in order to acquire Torah? Anyone got any last thoughts on that? Things they want to add to our list? I've got Robin. I've got mine.
Well, me and my Havruta noted that there's nothing on here about any involvement with your family or your community.
Nice. Yeah. Mayim, what are you thinking?
I wasn't raising my hand, so I'd rather not talk to you about what I'm thinking.
Just tell us anyway. Emil.
I would say that to be loved suggests that.
Hi.
Right. To be loved suggests that you are being a lovable person to your community, to the people around you.
Great. Emil?
I was going to say, I think what's really great about this list, you can quibble, and I do, with individual things, but I think it's like the holding of opposites, that makes it so distinctively Jewish. Like, you should know your place, which can also mean that you should know that you're very gifted, but you should also be humble, and you should be happy, but you shouldn't laugh, you should be afraid, you should, and even outside the realm of religious scholarship, that just seems to me like the Jewish ethos, right? That's like the sort of Jewish sensibility is like somehow trying to do like all these things at once. And I feel like it's the effort that sort of makes it like a really interesting list.
That's right. All right, we'll take 2 more comments. Shoshana?
Yeah, I'm kind of missing generosity from the list. I didn't see anything about, charity and giving, tzedakah. I don't see that. I think that's kind of strange.
Yeah. And who else has got Rhoda? I saw Rhoda. We'll take
Okay, yeah.
comments. Yeah, Rhoda.
I don't see anything about beauty. And there's so much talk about beauty in the Torah. And there's nothing here about anything beautiful, anything artistic, anything creative in that way. I'm a little surprised.
Wendy? No?
I know we said to not have laughter, but I think I would like to see something about having a sense of humor. I think so much of what has kept our people alive all these years is our great sense of humor. And that's what I would love to see on this list.
Yeah. Gary?
I think to study with a community and a rabbi you love. Thank you.
Well, I want to say just in closing that this is, there's more to do here, obviously. Just that we took over an hour and we only got halfway through the list. But it was really wonderful to hear everybody. This is just a wonderful experience for me to really hear from everybody this time. And I guess I just want to say there's 48 things on this list, and that can be read 2 ways. That might mean you need to do these 48 things, all of them, to acquire Torah, right? And that's why Torah is so massive and great. You need to do a lot of things. Or it could mean you can acquire Torah in 48 different ways. Any one of these things might lead you to some acquisition of Torah, right? So there's actually, it's not totalizing, it's actually a myriad of possibilities. It's actually opening in that sense. But I will also just close by echoing Elizabeth's sentiment that I liked especially dikduk chaverim, the give and take of a circle of friends. And I think that's what this group is, and that's what this community is, and I feel so viscerally how deeply I need all of you in order to be able to learn, in order to be able to be a part of, to acquire Torah. We really need each other. So it's been such a gift to have you through these 2 cycles. We will take a break for the next cycle, and we'll be back towards the end of the summer. Thank you so much for your Torah. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to throw out there again, now that we're at the end of the series, a big thank you to Mayim and Jeremy and Gwen and Samara for sponsoring this full Pirkei Avot series.
Wow, beautiful.
Hey.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Good to hear from you all tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good
It was
night,
wonderful.
everyone.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening. Good Shabbos.
Thank you.
Good summer.
Bye,
Bye, everyone.